Hi, aligned souls. Welcome to the Soul Revival podcast, where we have meaningful conversations to help you explore tools and healing methods that help you return to your soul self. Join us as we help you merge the ethereal and the material worlds, allowing you to live your most fulfilling and aligned life. I'm Lindsay Stanton, author, somatic practitioner, intuitive Reiki master, and grief coach.
Hello, I am Autumn, a believer in miracles, intuitive guide, and psychic medium. We're your hosts and guides. We don't just talk healing, we live it. This is where soul meets strategy, spirit meets structure, and our highest selves take the mic.
Welcome back to the Soul Revival podcast. Autumn and I are super excited to dive into today's topic. So, you all heard last week's episode, hopefully. Even if you didn't, there's going to be nuggets in this one, trust me. But today we're going to dive into Somatics Part 2. And I'm excited about this topic. Obviously, it's a modality that I was called to relatively early in my journey and helped me tremendously. And I felt called to it to help others as well as really help myself. And I know you have a really strong interest in it too, Autumn.
Yes, I do. It intuitively came to me, but Lindsay here is a somatics practitioner, so she has all of the goodies and the knowledge behind it, which I'm really excited for. Last week, I felt like I learned a lot from her, and this week I'm excited to learn more. But somatics is something that I feel a lot of people intuitively feel called to do, movement of the body, dancing, watching what you digest, anything that has to do with the physical body is usually one in one or hand in hand with somatics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that I learned in my training is to really recognize, and this is what I work on with my clients, but really recognize what the physical sensations are in your body that are cueing you into past experiences. And oftentimes, I think similar to spirituality, we take for granted or maybe don't cue into the smaller things that actually aren't small that are helping guide us in the direction of where we need to focus our efforts from a healing perspective. And I think this is particularly strong, and I feel that it's easiest for me to share examples personally from a grief perspective. But obviously, somatics can cue you into anything, whether it's traumas, and as we talked about in part one, it could be all type of trauma. Like it doesn't have to be something that you would classify as like a major. It could be something you consumed that you want to release, but for me personally, obviously the deeper experiences I've had with my body cueing me in and the value and importance of somatic work, especially in conjunction with Reiki healing, is really around my body cueing me to things that I need to work on, heal, transmute from a grief perspective. And it's interesting how spirit works. Obviously, Autumn and I had planned to record this part 2. And yesterday, I actually had a super triggering thing with my grief. And I'm not going to share all the details, but I'll share the relevant details as far as what happened and what I did about it and how I processed through it. And I think it's important to note I still had like an emotional reaction, and I still had that immediate response. So this isn't about wiping away, pretending, and I'm going to talk about that consistently today. This isn't about pretending something doesn't exist or hiding something or, bypassing something. This is really about tuning into the energy of it and learning tools, letting your body have the process, letting yourself have the initial reaction, but then having the tools in place to take the pause and help yourself reset, recenter. And that's exactly what I did yesterday. So I had a super triggering communication around my grief in the form of an email. It happened to me right before a meeting. And so I had like maybe 45 minutes at the most, maybe half an hour to re-regulate. And it was a very important meeting. So I had to, my former self, like my deep grief self, before I did any of this work, wanted to just have a total meltdown. And that was the direction that my body started to go. And I let the questions come up of worthiness and second guessing myself and feeling sadness, remorse, overwhelm. I let those take hold briefly. I recognized that they were coming up for me. And then I came at them with questions. Is that valid? Is that why that happened? And the answer is no. The answer is, and you can see, like, this is like an emotional process because I'm getting emotional now sharing it. The truth is, I know at a soul level that everything that happened needed to happen to take me to the place I am now, to help others, people heal, to be in a space where I have done the deep work and I come from a place of authentic understanding of all elements of grief and all triggers of grief. And some of them are very unpretty. And I was able to bring myself back to that truth in time and avoid completely a total meltdown, which early on my grief journey, I could tell you I would not have been able to do. It would have been like a rabbit hole moment. I would have eventually given myself the tools to get out of it just intuitively, but it would have been a much more strenuous process. And I would have taken myself down to some deeper depths than I needed to go. And that's what I was able to avoid yesterday. And because this specifically came up for me yesterday, and I know I'm doing all the talking right now, I'm sorry, but
No, no, I think people really need to hear this.
yeah, the one thing I want to talk about, and I feel like this is so important when it comes to grief, is sometimes we think about grief only in the context of like the person not physically being here and not having not being able to plan the future with them, not being able to have like holidays or special dates with them. But there are significant, and I have found it myself as well as with the clients I work with, triggers to grief that people don't even consider if they haven't been through it. And that is like all the documents you have to fill out, that's closing accounts, that's talking to lawyers, that's, receiving emails like that are reminders and society's way of wording things when you're closing accounts or, they're asking for death dates. Those are huge triggers for me because society views it as an ending. My truth is different than that. My truth is that it's only the beginning. We have an exciting opportunity to share with you.
Did you know inside the Soul Revival community, we have a giveaway? One lovely soul is gifted something sacred, a Reiki session, an intuitive reading, a powerful course, or even access into the community itself. This isn't just a giveaway. It's a soul blessing, a moment where healing meets divine timing. You'll feel the shift, you'll see the signs, and you'll know you're not alone anymore. Say yes to your intuition, your healing, your next chapter. Enter now at the link below in the show notes labeled Soul Revival Giveaway for your chance to win.
Let's get back to today's episode. But sometimes it is very triggering when you get brought into the material world's view of things, and it can set in like a panic of endings that doesn't exist. And that was very much the rabbit hole that I felt myself starting to go down yesterday. And I just wanted to address that because I've seen it with so many clients that I work with, that those types of documents that we don't even talk about, those types of minutia things that we have to deal with, for so long after grief. Like in some cases, some things like we always have to deal with. And those can be very, very deep triggers that I feel like often don't get talked about. And so, therefore, having the awareness that those things trigger you. So I know certain terminology. Oh, it triggers me. It triggers me, and that's okay. That's my body's visceral response to something. That's my emotional response, and that's okay. And I don't need to pretend that doesn't exist. And I have the ability to shine a light on the awareness, step back, not avoid it, but come up with tools that help me on that journey.
I think it's so beautiful how you blended the somatics part with journaling. So asking the deeper questions of why is this coming up? Because I think that it's like that peeling back the onion, like the layers underneath the actual trigger with the emotions. That's very validating, and I think that a lot of people could use that same exact tool when they're going through the same exact situations. Lindsay, do you feel like with grief, because I know that grief and trauma are so much alike, but early on and before I learned the tools and modalities, the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. So during my teenage years, I feel like I was always fight mode, fight mode, fight mode, fight mode. But then that transitioned to I didn't know at the time, but I would always, everyone would call it playing possum. My body would completely go offline, and I felt like my spirit was outside of my physical body a lot of the times when I would get very triggered. I realize now that's like the fawn mode, I believe, where your body just kind of just like limps up. And I remember people would always say, like, oh, Autumn's playing possum. Oh, Autumn's playing possum. And I would like hear it, but there was nothing online in my physical body.
Right.
Um, and I feel like a lot of people oftentimes deal with that fight, freeze, or fawn. That's a tongue twister during grief as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you bring up a really important point. I want to go to the main thing that you're bringing up, but I also, a side note on that is somatics really is about connecting that emotional response and what you're sensing in your body, because so often with grief and trauma, like you just described, they separate, and it's like a rejoining of them, and very much about coming at things from a lens of curiosity instead of reaction or judgment. You come at yourself with a lens of curiosity, and what can I learn from this? What is this trying to show me? What is this shining a light on? And I saw something yesterday actually that's very much related to our conversation right now. I saw an Instagram video with Oprah, and she had just interviewed, and I apologize, I don't remember the person's name, but this person that who she's had on her show, I think she said over 40 times, who is a revered expert, and he apparently was sharing that he works with a lot of men that have deep anger. And she was reflecting on the conversation and how the anger isn't anger, it's fear. And so much of the grief process, as I'm sure you feel too, with things that you've been through, it's fear. And the underlying energy of the anger, of the sadness, of the overwhelm, of the self deprecation is fear. You know, it's fear of permanence, it's fear of not being good enough, it's fear of, you know, thinking that you did something wrong in a situation, it's fear of worthiness. And I think when we can come to that, just tuning into that deeper underlying cause of fear, and guiding yourself back and thinking to yourself almost like a little version of you, and thinking of yourself in kindness and how you would take care of that little version of you, and guiding yourself based on what your physical body is cueing you into to help reconnect your emotional response and your body, because our bodies can be a beautiful guide to help us do the deeper healing work, so that we can avoid things like we talked about in the first episode on somatics of, physical conditions manifesting as a result of things lingering in our physical body.
Be sure to check out the show notes below to see if you're the winner of our giveaway. Yeah, and it all boils down to the self-love. Like when we take the time to figure out the what, the why, the where, the when, it will begin to bring the self-love about from within for healing. I love that you mentioned fear because the way that I like to look at fear is someone had said this a long time ago, so I don't know who it was, but it was false evidence appearing real. And so every time I feel that fear, I question it back. Well, what is the evidence that I know to be real?
Exactly.
And it's the same why, exactly. So that if someone's feeling that fear, question it back.
Yeah.
Question it back.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say too, and I'm sure this is the same with trauma, but but just coming at it from a knowledge of grief perspective, if there are certain things that you'll like feel in your body, whether it's like when a memory comes up, a certain memory maybe, or certain photos, or somebody tells a certain story, or like for me, like seeing the word death or anything related to like a permanent ending is like a super trigger for me. um what's your body saying to you in that moment? Like, what's your body saying to you? And I think the first step really is recognizing that sensation in your body, because once you recognize it and ask it why, coming at it again from the lens of curiosity, okay, why is my heart racing? Why do I feel like I want to run? Why do I feel like I want to freeze? Why do I feel like I'm in a total panic state? Why do I feel like I'm about to be attacked by a bear? Like that's, I mean, because that's ultimately like that's the state your body goes into, right? I mean, for me, I'm very much like my central nervous system goes haywire, and it's like in high drive, high drive. And I like for me it's like I have to throttle back. I have to figure out a way to recenter, ground, and throttle back, which could be breath work, movement, the things we talked about in episode 1. They help me regulate, which it's very important to, once you figure out what's triggering you and shine a light on it and get curious about what your body's telling you, then you need to dig into the things that, and it might be trial and error, but dig into the things that help you reset, because they can be different for different people. I know we just had a guest on the show recently who mentioned dance. It could be dance, it could be yoga, it could be like doing some stretches. It could be holding a rose quartz crystal. Like that's another good one for me. If I'm feeling dysregulated going into a meeting or a session, or I know it's going to be like a super intense session and my body is starting to get into that dysregulated state, I have a small rose quartz crystal I always keep on my desk, and I will hold it and just breathe into it.
I also just want to mention too, those are beautiful. This makes you a very strong person. This gives you that warrior energy. I feel there's so many people in the world that's like, oh, I just got to be strong. I just got to be strong. I got to fight through this. I just got to push it down. But but being strong is questioning it back, going through those vulnerable moments with yourself. You don't have to do it in front of anyone else but yourself, but that is where the healing begins, and that is when you get that warrior energy. I always tell Lindsay, you are a warrior. You get up, you give off this warrior energy, and it's because she goes to the places where she goes to the places that people maybe fear, which we had talked about before, but that is where the healing begins. And I really just want to mention, like, this is you being strong, you finding out the whys.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that deeply. That's like the highest compliment you could give me, to be honest. And but I do agree with you. I mean, the last point I wanted to make is, what are you bumping up against? And why is it there? So, I mean, we all believe the reason we're here, the reason we're having this conversation, the reason you're listening to this podcast is because there's a bigger truth, there's a universe, there's a oneness, there's a larger truth than just this physical material world. So what are you bumping against and what is it trying to teach you? And ultimately that's what it's about. That's what all suffering is about, is teaching us, expanding us, providing us an opportunity and a lens for growth. And when you do that deep work, this stuff is still going to happen to you. It's been almost 5 years for me. And I got deeply triggered yesterday. It's still going to happen. And that's okay. And that's fine. And that's normal. That is normal. And I think that's the thing too. It's like, I feel like sharing this personally, me sharing this after everything I've done, all the trainings, all the teachings, all the coaching, everything I've done, I still have times like this, and that's okay. And I give myself grace, permission, and a space to have that. And I have built the tools to allow me to come back to center. And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's not about bypassing, it's not about pretending your triggers don't exist. It's riding the wave with them, understanding that it's going to happen, but what can you do to help yourself return to center?
Oh, I love that, Lindsay. That is perfect. I think that's a perfect way to end this podcast because I it's just what do you need to do to regain that center inside of yourself? I think that that is what people are needing. They need to chase their desires. They need to understand that it is normal. Normalize this, normal to feel the emotions and to ride the wave.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, well, I hope you gained something from today's conversation. If you are interested in doing somatic work, I absolutely love incorporating somatics into my client sessions, and I'd be more than happy to offer a session and give you some deeper insight into what your body's cueing you into, and even just from a science perspective, which is a whole nother conversation. But yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to have this conversation today, Autumn.
It was beautiful. I think that a lot of people are going to have a lot of takes from this episode. So I'm really excited for it to launch and for people to gain the knowledge that you have around this and awareness.
Thank you. Thank you.
If today's words stirred something in you, that's no coincidence. Your soul is speaking and it's ready to be heard. If you resonated with today's episode, Spirit is cheering you on, encouraging you. Start choosing yourself again. Start saying yes to your healing and join our sacred community over at www.thesoulrevival.com.
Because healing is better when we do it together. If you love this episode, be sure to hit follow, leave a review, and share this with someone who's ready to return to their soul self. Thank you, Aligned Souls.